Hey guys, okay, so I haven't done a video in this in quite a while. As you all know, I used to react to Nikrit's MMORPG videos, and this time is going to be quite interesting. As always, his link will be down in the description below. If you love League of Legends and you love Riot overall, please check out his channel. He posts the best content ever of Riot and League of Legends. So let's get into it and see what this is about.
I really should change the title of the video, shouldn't I? So, it happened. Finally, after many years, we got some news on Riot's MMO. But it turns out to be that the MMO is taking 18 steps back in order to make one step forward.
Shit, that is not good.
So, in case you missed it, Mark Merrill, also known as Trindamir, gave us some news on Riot's MMO in the form of a tweet. Which is kinda poetic, because just like Ghostcrawler used Twitter to announce Riot's MMO, well now Trindamir is using Twitter to announce that they are resetting it. Which to many meant that Riot's MMO is essentially dead. But thankfully, that's not the case at all. Although there are quite a few flags sticking out that tell us that the future of this project will be difficult. So, let's dive right into it. Hey all, we know many of you are hungry for news about the MMO project, and we really appreciate your patience and the incredible support you've shown us so far. I'm writing to update you today on where we are at. And before anyone panics, yes, we are still working on the game.
Yeah, that's good.
You know that when they have to announce that they are still working on it, things are gonna get scary. After a lot of reflection and discussion, we've decided to reset the direction of the project some time ago. This decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. This is actually something that takes great courage to pull off. And big props to Riot for going through with this decision. Whenever you get a AAA game that comes out as a flop, in most cases, unless it was rushed out, it's because the game was following a vision that simply didn't work.
And this is where I put my hats down for Riot, or hats off, however the pronounce is, or the word is. Most of the big AAA companies will just like shut their mouth. They won't say anything, and then once the game is released, you will just see the game as an absolute piece of trash. Where Riot, they actually communicate with the community. They're actually telling the community like, hey, there's a step back, we're gonna do this and this and this and this and this. Just be patient with us. That is where I absolute salute Riot, because as everyone knows, Riot is probably one of the most successful AAA companies with League of Legends, Valorant, Legends of Runeterra. It is absolutely one of the best franchises out there. So for them to actually communicate with the community and telling them like, hey, this didn't work out, we're going to be doing this, just be patient with us, I absolutely salute them for that.
A good example of this would be Immortals of Avium. A game that sounds interesting on paper, but if your vision is to swap guns with hands, what's really the point? In this case, what the studio needs to do is to figure out what doesn't work, and they need to pull the plug on it before it eats too much resources. The issue there is, nobody wants to do that. In a similar way, it feels like the original vision of Riot's MMO didn't work, which meant that there was a high risk of the MMO going up in flames on release. So they had to do a really scary thing: go again. However, that doesn't mean that the MMO is starting from zero, and we'll get to that in a moment. Before that, Trindamir gave us one more line that managed to split the entire MMO community. The initial vision just wasn't different enough from what you can play today. We don't believe you all want to play an MMO you've played before with the Runeterra coat of paint. To truly do justice to the potential Runeterra and to meet the incredibly high expectations of players around the world, we need to do something that truly feels like a significant evolution of the genre.
That's actually not correct though, because my personal opinion is Legends of Runeterra, like, its graphic style is absolutely amazing. That is what makes League of Legends unique. Because League of Legends has a unique style of graphics, Valorant has a unique style of graphics. The new 2K, the new League of Legends, or the new Riot tactical fighter game, it has a unique style of graphics. So for me personally, I would like it if the Riot company keep their authentic style of graphics. Like, that is what makes Riot unique.
The thing here is, we don't believe you all want to play an MMO you've played before with the Runeterra code of paint. Is that true though? Because when you ask around, you'll find out that's exactly what people want. Me included, I highly disagree with this statement. But I am aware of the fact that sometimes what people really want is different from what they think they want. Not every time the MMO community is absolutely aware of that, but there is a whole another onion hidden behind what Trindamir mentioned here. An onion that has many layers where none of the layers are good or bad. Everything has its pros and cons, which is why the MMO is in a bit of a dangerous place right now. Take, for example, the current state of MMOs. For many years, WoW stayed as the king of all MMOs. For a time, Final Fantasy managed to overtake them,
Yeah, but not for long,
overall, somehow, WoW always managed to bubble up to the surface. And in my opinion, it's not because WoW would be this godly game. It's because the competition is ass. I'm being a bit too harsh for the joke of it. I mean, Guild Wars has an excellent setting and the fantasy delivery.
I must say, Guild Wars is one of the better MMORPGs I've played. I think I have like 300 to 400 hours in Guild Wars, and it is honestly one of the better MMORPGs. Like, I absolutely love Guild Wars, and my personal opinion, I choose Guild Wars over WoW. Like, I don't have that many hours in WoW. I think I have like 600 or something hours in WoW. But for me personally, like, out of all the MMORPGs I played, Guild Wars, Neverwinter, Final Fantasy, Lost Ark, WoW, like, Guild Wars would be personally my favorite.
Fantasy has an excellent story from what I've heard. But WoW has this one thing called loyalty, which is a nonsensical emotion that somehow beats everything else. And you know what can beat loyalty? Loyalty to an even bigger game. Which is why the RIOT MMO was always seen as a guaranteed success if they happen to make a traditional MMO. The thing here is, the other MMOs in development don't have this advantage, which is why they are forced into experimenting with new mechanics. That's why Ashes of Creation is heavily investing into the social systems, which are not necessarily the best for the casual players, which is why it may actually damage the MMO if they are not careful with it, but at the same time it is making the MMO stand out. In the exact same way, this is why Ghostcrawler's MMO is going for the shard system. They want...
And to those of you that don't know, a Ghostcrawler used to be the head of Riot's MMO, but he left Riot and created his own company, which is Fantastic Pixel Castle. And they are also busy with an MMO, but their MMO works a little bit different. It is in one of the videos in this playlist, so go have a look at it, where they focus on, I think you call it mirror gaming. I'm not exactly sure what they call it, but it is way different than your normal standard MMO, and it is going to be released like I think 3 or 4 years after Riot's MMO.
To be different, and they want to play towards the newly evolved player audience. You know, they are targeting the kids who grew up on Minecraft and Fortnite, and admittedly, that is smart. But you see, all of this is still just one part of this onion. Because on the other side, you have the exact opposite kind of an MMO that has a massive hungry audience. An audience that wants the most classical kind of MMO you can get. Open world, instance dungeons, gear farming, progression through raid tiers. And right now, the only kind of MMO that does this is classic WoW, which throughout its first 2 years of release absolutely annihilated the MMO market. Which could be a proof that the MMO audience is looking for this classic experience, but it may also not be that because nostalgia is a thing. The point is, there is currently nobody on the MMO market making a traditional MMO. The only one that did this was classic WoW, which was a massive success, but eventually it burned out because it was just a re-release. There was no new content. So yeah, people loved classic WoW all the way to the end, but eventually it ended. Now thankfully there is a season of Discovery that is trying new things with this. That one is amazing, but it also has its own issues, and that is a whole separate topic. The thing with this is, there is a reason why no one is trying to tackle this side of the market. It's because throughout the 2010s, everyone was making traditional MMOs to compete with WoW. And everyone burned because WoW was at its peak at the time. We had Rift, the Warhammer MMO, the Conan MMO, and Wildstar, which died not only because it was a bit too difficult, but also because it released against the hype of that, and no one wants to fight that. Anyway, the point is that WoW is not at its peak anymore, which is why there is a massive audience of players that want a traditional MMO that have nothing to play. And this is why, in a lot of cases, WoW players were just waiting for the right MMO so they can find a new home. Because everyone else making MMOs is trying to go away from the traditional formula. And this is why the right MMO is in an interesting situation. On one side, you have the massive market gap in the traditional MMOs, which is currently not served by anyone, but on the other side, you have the mass audiences, which are 10 times bigger, but they are harder to please. Which is exactly why all the new MMOs are trying something new. Everyone is trying to hit the next trend. So I'm not saying that one is better than the other, I'm just saying this is gonna be interesting. Now, from Trindamir's tweet, it is difficult to say what Riot's strategy is right now. It feels like they started with making a traditional MMO, but internally it simply didn't feel good enough, and so they want to change the genre a bit. Now, this could be anything from changing how the progression works, as in maybe you don't even level up your character, maybe progression is just purely gear driven, to the big changes such as the MMO being purely lobby based, closer to something like Warframe, I guess. Which is still scary, because if there is one thing people want to see, it is an open world League of Legends universe experience. There is no way Riot can get rid of that. And with this announcement, Trindamir admits that they are making a move that is very hard to pull off. This is a huge challenge, but one that our team of deeply passionate MMO players and game development veterans is incredibly motivated to pursue. Thankfully,
that is actually a nice thing. Like, if you know the people that work for you, that the people that work on the current subject or on the current development, if they are excited, then you must know, like, it is going to be good. Because if you work on something, like, it's the same with content creation. Like, if you are excited to create content, then you know, like, it is going to be good. But if you feel like, okay, I must do this because I have to do it, then you're not gonna put in 100% effort, and then it is just gonna be completely a fuck up.
this is a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, because historically it has been proven that if your developers are excited about a project, it usually means you are on a good track. And all you need to do is to look at the individuals working on the MMO to see they are all super excited about the project. After which, Trindamir gave us another piece of news that scared a lot of people. But don't worry, you don't have to panic. With this new direction, I'm excited to introduce Fabrice as the new executive producer on the MMO. Fabrice's experience as a player and passion for creating immersive worlds is extraordinary. Having led big projects at Riot, BioWare and EA, he brings a fresh perspective and a shared commitment to excellence that will guide our team as they continue on this difficult journey. Here, of course, everyone jumped to the smoking gun of BioWare and EA. And I will admit, you can make some funny memes out of this. But it is not as one-sided as BioWare bad, EA even worse. The truth is, no developer ever wants to make a bad game. When a bad game comes out, 99% of the time it's because it was rushed out, because the financial side wanted to push for earnings. It is never the case that the developers don't care about a game and so they make it bad. You have to remember it goes onto their portfolio. I mean, if you are the lead of a game, do you really want to make a bad game knowing that your face is gonna be on the front of it? Of course you don't. So when there is a name that is attached to a big corporation, remember that a corporation has a lot of people who are responsible for a lot of questionable decisions that eventually drip down to the games. With that said, there is a reason why people are scared. See, EA is EA. There is so much happening here that nearly every developer in the game industry was involved with EA somehow. From gambling simulators to Star Wars publishing to the hosting of some pretty good live services. The ups and downs are all over the place. So seeing EA in the bio means nothing. The BioWare tag, however, is a bit more interesting. Throughout its history, BioWare released bangers. It was one success after another. And jokingly, internally, the devs called it BioWare magic. They themselves didn't even know why their games were so good. So to a degree, it could have been raw talent, or it could have been luck. But that all crumbled when Mass Effect Andromeda came out, which was followed by Anthem. Anthem became the more infamous one, because based on the interviews, the entire game was just mismanaged from the very beginning. The devs didn't really know what kind of a game they were making. And that's all the way to the point the game got its fake gameplay trailers. I wish I was joking, the interviews about this are hilarious. And thankfully, after a lot of searching, it seems like Fabrice was not on Anthem. So we dodged the bullet there. On the other side, however, Fabrice was the producer on Mass Effect 3, the Omega DLC, and Mass Effect Andromeda. So, what does this mean? Well, by a pure coincidence, it just so happens to be
that yes, I am a bit of a Mass Effect fan.
And funnily enough, I know quite a bit on this topic. So, despite its drama with the ending, Mass Effect 3 was an absolute banger. And looking back, it reflects on the ratings that are still above 90%. Yes, in many ways, Mass Effect 3 was a bit worse than the other two games, but that's only if you compare them to each other. I mean, Mass Effect 2 is considered one of the best games ever made. But looking at gaming in general, Mass Effect 3 is still a big success. Not to mention, a really important detail here is that the multiplayer side of Mass Effect 3 was very popular. And I loved it too, so given how this multiplayer gameplay relates to MMOs, this is actually awesome news. After this, there is also the Omega DLC, which, yes, compared to all the other DLCs, this one was seen as just okay. There was a lot of shooting, not too much awesome story. But lastly, Fabrice is credited for Mass Effect Andromeda. And out of everything, this is the only one where I would justify being worried. But thankfully, it is also not that one-sided. Because again, compared to the other Mass Effect games, yes, this absolutely was not a great one. But on the gaming market, it is still an above-average game, which, with a lethal dose of copium, can be seen as a success. The thing is, the main issue with Andromeda is how rushed out it was. The content it had was decent, it had some good moments in there, but it had some pieces missing because Andromeda was pushed out too early because of financials. Again, we know this from the interviews. Which also means that yes, Fabrice being the producer of this game doesn't necessarily mean he has to be responsible for the shortcomings. It may simply mean that they didn't get enough time. But unfortunately, there is no way we will get to learn about this. Which means that when it comes to this big rant about BioWare and EA, it literally doesn't mean anything and it may as well not be mentioned. All this means is that Fabrice has experience with leading bigger projects, which, all things considered, sounds fine. So next, Tryndamere also gave us some context on the reset of the MMO. We started laying the groundwork for this pivot some time ago, and over the last year, under VJ Tucker's management, we built key components on the technical foundation to create the kind of ambitious game we're talking about. We are grateful for VJ's leadership, and that he'll be part of the game leadership team going forward as our technical director.
I'm actually so glad.
First of all,
I'm actually so glad that VJ is still part of the team, because he was one of the lead developers in the team. You will see there is a video RIOT MMO's interview, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is the one where Nakrit went to RIOT headquarters and he had an interview with all of them.
thank God VJ is still on the team. That is quite a charismatic guy. But interestingly enough, we can already pick up some details from this. Obviously, when I was at RIOT last year, I signed an NDA, so I can't really tell you anything besides what was shown in the interview. But since Tryndamere mentioned that this pivot was being pushed out over the last year, it means that when all the different MMO creators were invited to RIOT headquarters, which we know about because of all the pictures on Twitter.
This is actually like really nice, because show me another AAA company that is busy developing a game that will, like, Asmongold is probably the biggest MMO creator in existence, and show me another headquarter or another AAA company that will invite MMO players or just players in general, like big players that know what they're doing, over to the headquarters to get feedback from them on the game that they are busy developing. Like, I don't know of any other headquarters or AAA companies that does that. If there is, please let me know that in the comments below.
It seems like that was while the reset was already happening. So it is possible that RIOT invited everyone there so they could get some kind of feedback to make sure they are going in the right direction. In this case, this reset would absolutely make sense. And it should spark confidence that RIOT is not going in blind. Also, as I mentioned, this doesn't mean that the MMO is starting from zero again. Since they are laying down the technical foundation, it means they are focusing more on restructuring the core gameplay. If they already had some assets in the world, it would likely mean those assets would still be in the game, as well as the base systems such as basic movement or networking. I mean, in the interview they mentioned that they are trying something new artistically, so whatever they were experimenting on should still be in the game. So from 0 to 100, if before RIOT was at 20 with the MMO, now they went back to 10. Which is still not 0. After which, Tryndamere continues with a funny line. Resetting our development path also means that we will be going dark for a long time, likely several years.
Okay, this is not good. This is not good.
What do you mean going dark? You never went light. Let me translate this for you. Nothing changed. This silence will help provide space for the team to focus on the incredible amount of work ahead of them. We understand the excitement and anticipation that surrounds new information, but we ask for your trust during this silent phase. Remember, no news is good news, as it means we are hard at work, pouring our hearts and souls into making something that we hope you'll love. And here's the thing. Here Tryndamere asks for our trust during this silent period. And the fact is, they kinda earned it. Valorant was developed in full silence, only being revealed during the 10th anniversary. Project L was announced, then went silent, and then they came back with an entire new art direction and new gameplay. Arcane was announced during the 10th anniversary, then went silent for a year, and then broke all the statistics on Netflix. The truth is, with enough time, RIOT produces bangers. And that even accounts for League. You may think that it is a game, but there is a reason why millions of players still play it. So if there is one thing RIOT is good at, it is making things in silence. Which sucks, because we don't get to see anything. But eventually, it should work out. So, overall, what did we learn today? We learned that nothing in our lives will change, and you just wasted your time watching this video. I mean, it means that instead of our children playing this game, it is gonna be our grandchildren doing it. I mean, they said that they will go silent for several years, so we can make an educated guess. After the 15th anniversary, the next one in line is the 20th,
which is in 5
which would
years.
be 2029. So I would expect some kind of an announcement on the 20th anniversary with maybe a bit of a reveal, with the potential release of the game being around 2032 or 2033. Which is still ridiculous considering that we are in 2024. In a way, it is still good to see that
I'm going to be a fucking uncle when the MMO releases.
RIOT is going for this hard pivot, especially if they felt like the original vision wasn't going to work. Ignoring this kind of pivot is exactly what killed many different games in the past. One excellent example of this would be Duke Nukem Forever. That game became infamous for noodling around for so long it lost its original vision. And in a similar way, RIOT is risking losing the original vision of the game if they make the wrong move. So
That's
if
true.
they feel like it's not working out, it is always better to make the pivot. And you know what? I would rather see this kind of a delay instead of yet another yellow sorry box. Then again, I just hope that eventually when the MMO comes out, it is still gonna be some kind of an MMO and not a lobby simulator. And yes, all of this still arrived with one really bad thing. The one thing that is going to affect me massively. I can't make videos on RIOT's MMO anymore. What am I gonna do?